You, David. Well, after 8 hours of deliberation, a Madison County jury found a former Jackson teacher guilty of killing a woman and her unborn child. Now, once the verdict was read, Carla Hughes broke into tears. She had shown little emotion throughout the trial.
Well, Hughes was convicted for the November 2006 shooting and stabbing death of Avis Banks and her unborn child. Banks was 5 months pregnant when she was killed.
The 911 call is short, panicked. There's blood everywhere and she's pregnant. A garage door creaks halfway open. Flashlights sweep across concrete. A scream pierces the night. Then silence. And just like that, one woman's future, and her child's, was gone. Murdered. Before she ever stepped through the door. Avis Banks was 27 years old, 5 months pregnant. She was planning her baby's room, picking out names. She had just called her mom that morning, said she was coming by later that week to drop off ultrasound pictures. She never made it. Earlier that day, everything looked normal. She got off work from the daycare center at 5:16 p.m. like always. She texted her fiancé, "You home yet?" No reply. By 6:41, neighbors on Old Square Court heard a loud noise but brushed it off as fireworks. Nobody called the police. By 8:45 p.m., her body was found just feet away from the door to her home. Lying in the garage, shot, stabbed, unborn child gone. The lights were still on inside. Her shoes were still on her feet. Her car door was halfway open. Something had gone terribly wrong in that small window of time. Something planned, precise. But from the outside looking in, nothing appeared broken. The person who killed her didn't take anything, didn't rush, didn't leave a note, just vanished. This is not just a story about murder. It's a story about betrayal. About what happens when two lives overlap in silence, and one woman pays the price for someone else's secrets. You are watching Black Girl Lost, and where we don't just tell true crime stories, we tell her story. The ones the system tried to erase, the ones the headlines never fully explain. Subscribe to bring more attention to stories that matter. Like, if you believe Black women deserve protection. Comment your thoughts as you watch. Your voice helps bring justice. She always said, "My home is my peace." And if you knew Avis Marie Banks, you knew she meant that with every part of her. Born on August 4, 1979, in Jackson, Mississippi, Avis was the kind of woman people didn't forget. Not because she was loud or demanding, but because her presence was soft, steady, grounding. She had a calming way of walking into a room and making people feel like they mattered. She wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. She was kind, but she could read you in a second. If she liked you, you'd know it. And if she didn't, well, you'd still get a polite smile. That was just Avis. She graduated from Jackson State University with a degree in education, but her real gift was working with children. She loved them, especially the ones other people thought were too much. She would always say, "There's no such thing as a bad kid, just kids who have not been heard." That is how she lived, listening, laughing, loving people through their mess. At 27, she was exactly where she wanted to be. She had a steady job at a daycare center in Madison County. Her coworkers said she lit up whenever a toddler ran into her arms or made her a crayon drawing with crooked letters. She would tape those drawings to her locker, right next to the ultrasound picture of her baby. That baby was her everything. She had names picked out. She did not know the gender yet. She wanted to be surprised. "I don't care what it is," she told her best friend, "as long as it is healthy and has his smile." Meaning Kaon, her fiancé. They had been planning the wedding for months. She had already picked a dress. Ivory satin, sweetheart neckline. She had it saved on her phone. The baby was due in April, wedding in the summer. Her whole future mapped out like Sunday school verses. Simple, sweet, full of hope. But Avis was not just a fiancé or a mother-to-be. She was layered. At work, she was calm and nurturing. At home, she could be goofy, dancing barefoot in the kitchen with a pickle in one hand and hot sauce in the other. She was obsessed with the color yellow. Everything had to be yellow. Her bedroom, her coffee mug, even the blanket she kept in her car. She wrote poetry, not the kind she shared on Facebook, but the kind she kept in a notebook under her bed. Quiet thoughts, private ones. pages and pages of things she never said out loud. People who knew her say she had this dual energy, sweet and serious, soft eyes but sharp wit. She could joke with you and check you all in the same breath. She would look you dead in the eye and say, "Don't play with me," then burst out laughing. She was not perfect, but she was real, loyal, intentional. The kind of woman who would drive across town just to bring her goddaughter cookies before bedtime. She didn't smoke, she didn't party, she had no enemies, no wild past, no secret history, just a woman quietly building a life for herself, brick by brick. She always said, "My home is my peace." That house on Old Square Court, it was supposed to be where she raised her baby, made Sunday dinners, grew old. But all of that would change before the sun set on that November night. If she reminds you of someone you love, comment her name below. November 29th, 2006. It was a Wednesday. The kind of quiet, chilly afternoon that feels forgettable until it's not. Avis left work around 5:30 p.m., sharp. Her coworkers say she was tired but in good spirits. The daycare had been hectic that day, holiday crafts, messy lunches, a fussy toddler with a stomach bug, but she didn't complain. She clocked out with a laugh, waved goodbye, and told her boss she'd be back in the morning. She never made it to that next morning. As she pulled into the driveway of the house on Old Square Road, her garage door lifted halfway before stopping. A neighbor across the street heard the car engine hum, then a pause, then a sound, short, muffled, not quite like a backfire, but enough to make her look up. She didn't think much of it. That neighborhood didn't see much trouble, but inside that garage, something horrific had just taken place. Avis had stepped out of her car, shot once in the leg, likely to disable her, another shot to her back, then to her head. Her throat was cut. She had been stabbed multiple times in the chest. Her unborn baby, a little boy, nearly full term, never stood a chance. Nothing was stolen. Her purse was untouched. The house had not been ransacked. It was not a robbery. It was not random. Whoever did this knew exactly what they came to do. At 8:30 p.m., Keon pulled into the driveway. What happened next became one of the most heavily scrutinized moments in the case. He told officers he saw the garage light on but didn't think anything was wrong until he noticed the door ajar. That was when he saw her, Avis, on the cold garage floor, face down, blood pooling around her. The call to 911 was made by Keon. His voice was shaky, but he wasn't crying. Detectives took note of that. They asked if he knew anyone who would want to hurt Avis. He said no. They asked again. He still said no. Then one officer asked, "Was there anyone she had issues with recently? Maybe someone at your job?" He hesitated, then said, "There is this teacher I work with, Carla, but that is just work. It's nothing like that." That was the first time her name came up. Detectives started with the obvious. They questioned Keon Pittman, Avis's fiancé. He was calm. Too calm, some officers noted. He gave consistent answers, but there was something about how clean those answers were, like he had rehearsed them. But no bruises on his hands, no blood on his clothes. His alibi was shaky but not impossible. He said he had been at a basketball practice after work. The assistant coach confirmed it. Still, police could not ignore the tension between Keon and Avis that close friends kept hinting at. It was not long before another name came up again, Carla Hughes, a fellow teacher at the middle school where Keon worked. She wasn't on anyone's radar at first, but once investigators started asking around the school, they got a very different picture of Keon's so-called professional life. Teachers whispered about how they had seen him and Carla getting a little too close, flirty text messages, side glances in the hallway. One janitor said he saw them parked in Keon's car more than once after school hours. Carla Hughes was not just some woman at work. She was in a relationship with him. When police pulled her phone records, things became clearer. Text after text to Keon, phone calls late into the night, voicemails that sounded more like confessions than conversations. Carla was not just another woman. She believed she was the woman. Detectives visited Carla at her apartment. She smiled through the conversation, said she barely knew Avis, claimed her relationship with Keon was just friends. But they asked for her phone, and once they had that, the cracks split wide open. She had been Googling baby shower dates, browsing wedding websites. One of those sites had Avis's name on it, bold and centered at the top. their names, their wedding date. Carla had clicked through every single page, more than once. Then came the journal. In a pink spiral notebook found in her nightstand, Carla had written entries, pages and pages, about how much she loved Keon, how she hated Avis. One line read, "If she were gone, he could finally be mine." Another entry, just weeks before the murder, said, "I could take her place. I would be a better mother to his son." Carla was a certified educator. She had a master's degree. She came from a good family, no criminal record, but none of that could cover up what investigators were now piecing together. Carla had borrowed a gun from her cousin a few days before the murder. She claimed it was for personal safety. That same gun was returned shortly after Avis was killed, cleaned. No bullets left, no explanation. Forensics checked her shoes. A pattern left near the garage door matched the treads on a pair she owned. Surveillance from a traffic camera caught her car near Avis's neighborhood. Her cell phone pinged off a nearby tower around the time of the attack, placing her minutes away from the scene. And yet, Carla kept smiling in interviews. She thought she could outtalk it. Thought her education, her image, her clean background would protect her. She underestimated the evidence. Police laid it all out in a timeline. From the text logs that showed Carla's frustration over being ignored to Keon's flustered calls the night Avis died. They highlighted the garage's entry point, mapped out her likely path, from her car to the house, back again. And just like that, the image of a respected teacher crumbled. What does it say when the person expected to protect and nurture middle schoolers is capable of killing a pregnant woman in cold blood? She was not some shadowy figure hiding in alleyways. She had a classroom, students, lesson plans. She stood in front of children every weekday. But jealousy, when left unchecked, does not always show up wearing rage on its face. Sometimes it shows up in lipstick, with a lesson plan and a smile. The courtroom was cold, not from the air, but from the weight that filled it. Wooden benches packed with family, reporters, and strangers drawn in by the shock of it all. Carla Hughes sat still at the defense table, shoulders back, head slightly tilted down, but never bowed. Her eyes scanned the room, but they landed on no one. No trembling hands, no emotion, just stillness.
Keon Pittman has been on the witness stand all day in the Carla Hughes murder trial. He told the court about his affair with Hughes, and he described the day he found his pregnant fiancé murdered in their garage.
16 WAPT's Catherine Kite is following this case from the courtroom. She's live now. Catherine, tell us what was going on during Pittman's testimony.
Well, Brad and Stephanie, the jury took in every word and kept their eyes glued to Carla Hughes and Keon Pittman while Keon told about their 4-month love affair. Carla showed no facial expression, but sometimes whispered to her attorney and took notes while Keon talked about their love affair. Keon Pittman testified he and Carla Hughes met at Chastain Middle School in August 2006, just 1 month after he and his fiancée Avis Banks found out they were expecting a baby. Keon says his and Carla's relationship quickly turned romantic. He says it all started when he went to Carla's apartment one day in August. He says they had sex and referred to their 4-month affair as a sexual adventure. Meanwhile, Avis Banks' family filled the courtroom, many times cringing and gasping at the details of the affair. At one point during the testimony, he admitted to playing a role in Avis's death.
Mr. Pittman, did you kill Avis Banks?
No.
Do you feel any responsibility for her death?
Yes.
Tell me how.
If I would have stayed faithful to who I was with, if I had been thinking poorly, making bad choices, or made a bad choice to sleep around and flirt with other women, this chain of events would have never taken place, bro.
Thank you, David. Well, after 8 hours of deliberation, a Madison County jury found a former Jackson teacher guilty of killing a woman and her unborn child. Now, once the verdict was read, Carla Hughes broke into tears. She had shown little emotion throughout the trial.
Well, Hughes was convicted for the November 2006 shooting and stabbing death of Avis Banks and her unborn child. Banks was 5 months pregnant when she was killed. 16 WAPT's Catherine Kite has been following this trial for us all day. She begins our live team coverage from Canton. Catherine.
Well, good evening, Stephanie. It was a very tense day inside the courtroom today. Carla Hughes' family sat on one side of the courtroom. Avis Banks' family sat on the other side of the courtroom. And with emotions running high, sheriff's deputies sat on the ends of the courtroom pews while the judge read the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Carla Hughes, guilty of capital murder.
Carla Hughes hung her head as the judge read the verdict, convicted of 2 counts of capital murder.
When the jury came back with their verdict, the room froze. 2 counts of capital murder, life in prison without the possibility of parole. No gasps, no cries, just the sound of Avis's mother letting out a muffled sob as the words echoed off the courtroom walls. Carla was led out in silence. She didn't look back, and in that silence, something settled over the room, something hard to name. 1 woman dead, 1 child never born. 1 woman in prison, 1 man untouched, and a question that still lingers in every room this case is mentioned in. Was justice served or stolen again? Drop your verdict below. Time didn't soften what happened. It just made the quiet feel heavier. The world moved on, like it always does, but for Avis Banks' family, her absence stayed sharp. Her best friend once said, "We don't just miss her, we live with the hole she left." The story of Avis Banks did not start with a murder, and it doesn't end with a conviction, because what happened to her happens to far too many women who look like her. Every year, over 1,800 Black women are killed in the United States, and most of them, like Avis, are killed by someone they knew, someone they trusted, someone they never imagined would take their life. We only heard about Avis because the case made the news, but what about the ones who don't? Over half of all domestic violence cases involving Black women never make it to national headlines. No breaking news, no documentaries, no candles on the sidewalk, just silence, the kind that swallows names before we ever get the chance to say them out loud. This was not just personal, it was cultural. Avis was failed by silence, by systems, by deception. She was failed when red flags were brushed off as just drama, failed when no one checked in, failed when her peace was treated like it was negotiable. She always said, "My home is my peace," but peace never came. In the end, we have to ask ourselves, how many more? How many more Black women have to die before we say their lives matter when it's still daylight, not just after the crime scene tape goes up? We tell Black women to be resilient, to hold it together, to push through. But we rarely ask what it is costing them to survive in a world where protection is not promised. Comment if you believe Black women deserve to live, to be heard, and to be safe. Let this not be where the story ends. Let it be where awareness begins, where names are spoken, where silence is no longer acceptable, where justice isn't just a verdict, but a vow. She was not a case file. She was everything to someone. She mattered, before the headlines, before the courtroom, before anyone picked up a mic and spoke her name for a jury. She was someone's teacher, someone's first love, someone's daughter, and she was about to be someone's mother. To Avis's family, we see you, we hear you, and we carry her memory with you. To her friends, thank you for keeping the light on year after year. To everyone watching right now, this story shouldn't have to be told in past tense. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Like this video to push Avis's name higher in the algorithm. Share this with someone who needs to know what really happened. Subscribe to help keep the names of Black women like Avis from disappearing into silence.